and stuff.
Yep. That's what we're going with. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. I was just trying to see if I can get my new Beats to connect to my laptop rather than wearing the headset, but it's not cooperating with me.
I always learned that like laptop Bluetooth sucks.
It's horrible. It connects to everything else
Yeah.
just fine.
See what I found is mine tries to connect to my laptop, and then it tries to connect to my phone, and then it tries to connect to my laptop again,
And gets
and it
all
tries to connect to my
confused.
phone. Yeah, and I'm like, this is stupid. So anything important go on since our last broadcast?
No.
Might have been a football game that happened or something like that.
Football game.
Yeah, it's preseason. Who
All right.
cares?
Hold on. I had topics first. Nope, we're good.
Except for a word question.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a work list. It was just a list we don't really need to.
Bobby Hart is trending right now.
Is he?
So
As he
this is the annotation under it too. It says some Bills fans are less than impressed with Bobby Hart's performance during Buffalo's preseason game. That's incredible.
Wow.
Less than. I think that's a dramatic understatement. Less than impressed.
Less than impressed. Well, I definitely was less than impressed.
Again, still feels like a dramatic understatement for how bad he was and how much of a turnstile he seemed to be.
It was pretty awful. Like, it was one of the most noticeable parts of the entire game for me is how often he was just whiffing on blocks entirely.
They couldn't run behind him because
or pass.
he missed, right? And it felt like every single time there was a pressure from Detroit, it was because he got beat. And like, it wasn't like they were doing spin moves. It was literally like he didn't get set fast enough so they could run around him.
God bless you. It's all right.
So I've got good news and bad news.
Okay.
So the good news is I took some really good notes on the preseason game that we can get into as we start to discuss things a little bit. Bad news is I've probably only got about 30 minutes. I just got a call from the delivery company that the new couch and bedroom set that I ordered is going to be delivered in the next 45 minutes.
All right.
I wasn't expecting it until like 5 or 6. So this is, so I'm just going to roll with it. So I'll squeeze in as much as I can, and then might have to jump out before the end, but I'll try to squeeze in as much as I can.
Yeah, so we can just go, and then if Paul needs to leave, we can just wrap up.
Yeah, I figure Noah and I will just talk for the next half an hour, and then we'll be good. So,
Perfect.
overall thoughts on the game.
You can go first, Paul.
All right. So I will say that I was impressed with our second string across the board. I think that out of the gate, Rousseau and Epinesa lining up as D end left and right too. They came across incredible. I felt like they were so in sync as opposing edge rushers that they were meeting at the quarterback at times and had enough time to have a lunch break before going back to the huddle. Like, those guys were just collapsing around, and Epinesa was showing what he's done in the offseason by how physical and how quick he seemed to be off the ball. I was expecting Rousseau to be quicker off the jump than Epinesa was, just because he's got the length to go with them. But to see them meet at the quarterback the way they did a couple of times was incredible to watch, and it made me really excited to see what's going to happen. I also thought there was a couple guys that really stood out to me during the course of things. I will say, first of all, in the beginning, the first quarter, I thought Jaquan Johnson came up a couple of times There was a little bit of a scary incident where he was slow to get off the field, but his helmet was just messed up. Josh Thomas seemed to flash all over the place, especially in the run game, coming up with run support. I thought that he was pretty incredible there. Trubisky not throwing the ball wasn't really a surprise to me. I thought that they were going to go in against the starting Detroit defense and try to run the ball to see what we had. And that leads me into Singletary, who I thought showed us more of what he was in 2019 than what he was in 2020. And I think the way he's put on, it didn't slow him down at all. He was still able to cut just as good, but it felt like he had a little bit more physicality to his game than he's previously had. So I was really happy to see that. I was impressed by Spencer Brown's length and just how big he is, especially in the run game. It seemed like he could really move fast on plays where he was pulling. But in pass protection, he definitely seems like that's his weak spot. But he's just supposed to be the swing tackle for now. He's not supposed to be Deion Dawkins or Darrell Williams.
Right.
He's supposed to be, in the background, kind of waiting for his moment. But those are probably my first quick hit impressions, just based on, especially the first half. Oh, and Bass. I can't forget Bass. I'm going to end with him because he clutched everything. Man, I'm so glad right at the end. It is so good. I love him. He's the perfect kicker for Buffalo. I was upset that we moved on from Hauschka, but then he stepped in last year. I thought he did a great job last year. But man, he's got so much swagger to him too. I love it. Shout out to Tyler Bass.
Yeah, definitely. So, here were, I guess,
So who knew Saran Neal played nickel corner?
He was listed on their depth chart as their corner. Or as their nickel corner, rather.
He was backup safety last year, though, right?
Yeah, he was, but they said he dropped a little bit of weight and that he was, thank you, and that he was, well, they talked about it yesterday, about how athletic he was. They talked about it on the during the game. Yeah. So the Bills felt like they could move him inside at corner and be a physical nickel corner.
I thought he handled his own. I mean, he didn't jump off the page as making mistakes. Like, I didn't notice him for any mistakes that he was really making.
Yeah, I was surprised because I didn't like him at safety last year. So I'm happy that they're making the switch.
He's a DB.
One of the interesting things that I found is that they are switching a bunch of players around, from their natural position almost, which is weird to me, but it seems like a very McDermott thing to do.
Well, they converted Mike Bell from safety to a linebacker, and he played very well in that second half.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, he was one of that group of guys who was like, wow, he's making literally every single tackle.
Yeah, he was in on like every single play in the second half. It was nuts.
So, speaking of guys making every single tackle, beginning of the game, Tyler Matakevich had a really nice first play.
In my head, I was like, that's funny that the very first good defensive play is from Matakevich. Like,
speaking of Matakevich, though,
for 2 weeks going into this,
did anyone notice there was a designed run that Detroit had run? It was early in the first quarter, and Matakevich motioned up, tapped the D line on the back, and was like, slide right.
Yes.
And he got them to slide right. And then the receiver cut back to the other side, and he should have slid them back to the left, and he didn't. And it just seemed odd to me, but he's not used to being in that position either, where like he's, to my knowledge, it goes Tremaine Edmonds and then Dodson. Like, Dodson was that guy last year. So I like that they're giving him reps, but it definitely seemed like he definitely made the right check when the receiver went in motion. But then when the receiver came back across the formation, he didn't reset, and it ended up being like a 5 or 6 yard run because everybody was slid to the right, and then the run went to the other side. So that was just one thing I noticed. But besides that, you guys are right. Like, he definitely flashed and showed a little bit of potential on defense above and beyond what he already brings to special teams. Like, he's got to be a lot for the roster.
Yeah, I think so too.
He showed his IQ. I think that was the biggest thing. Like, I don't know if he showed like he's this, super athletic guy or anything like that. Like, I mean, that first play he made, that was pretty athletic.
I think he's more athletic than
athletic.
you think of for
well, yeah, but I think the main thing that he showed in this game was that he does have a high IQ for his position.
Yeah.
Even being like a special team.
I think he's just got a high IQ.
Yeah.
Football IQ. And it seems to come off that way. Even though, back to Paul's point, he probably should have moved the guys back into their position on that play.
But I think that was the only little mishap that I noticed. And I don't know why it caught my eye, because it caught my eye that he knew to make that check when there was motion. So it originally caught my attention because it was like, okay, that's a heads up play. And then he slid back across, and I completely expected, and maybe that's not entirely on him, because I feel like the D-line should recognize that as well. And should have looked to each other.
Someone
and
then on the D-line should have called it. And
because it was very obvious that he went back across the line, like the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Like he went one way and then went right back, and somebody should have picked up on that. But again, they're not the starters, and I think for what we saw, I was impressed all around.
Yeah, especially for the second team playing against the starters of the Lions. I definitely liked what I saw.
Detroit was held to 2.7 yards in the first half.
That was their incredible.
Average.
That's awesome. Now we know why they traded Stafford, right?
Get him out of here.
Bringing mediocrity, or right? They would have averaged 1.7 with him, but they gained an extra yard with Goff.
Exactly. So,
who got swallowed up by Rousseau a couple of times, and I was all the way there for it.
Rousseau had, I don't remember what it was, but he had like 11 pressures or something.
It was, or like, I think he had 11 pass rush attempts.
Yes.
3 pressures and a sack, I believe, is what the final stat line for him ended up being. And that's for a rookie that was supposed to be a project, and Basham was supposed to be the pro ready one. It kind of seems like the reverse from the outside looking in.
It looked completely different.
Yeah, because it didn't look ready.
No, he looked like
Basham looked like it was a little too big of a stage for him, honestly.
Yeah,
he definitely kind of looked like a deer in the headlights. And there were a couple times where they pulled him out.
He wasn't ready to boogie.
And and like McDermott or like somebody would be talking to him, and he would just kind of be standing there like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you should totally
maybe
know
I shouldn't do my spin move 8 times in a row.
Right.
So I wasn't the only one that was picking up on that, right? Like, it seemed like that was the only.
When you texted the group chat and were like, he will not stop with the spin move, I made sure to watch it. 5 plays in a row, he did it. I was like,
what are you doing?
You're going against the same guy.
He was even doing it against run plays, right? Like, it was a clear running situation, and he was still hitting them with a spin move. I'm like, bro,
it didn't matter. Right, exactly. It didn't matter. And he was going up against the same guy every single time. And there he is spinning.
Like, and you're like, gonna recognize it.
So the one thing that all of our critique and visualizations, but that's not what I'm trying to say. All of our critique, I guess, we have to remember too that guys were probably given specific assignments, right?
Yeah.
They may have said to Basham, try your spin move.
Work on your spin move all game. You don't use it in so there's definitely some added context that could be there.
So
for sure.
So I mean, we need to take some of that into consideration. That doesn't mean that we can't critique, because
I'll tell you this. He uses the spin move.
I mean, even if he was told that
too.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe in game 2 we look for a non-spin move and see if he improves. But let's stick with the defensive line. We're going to go back to linebackers, but let's stick with the defensive line and talk about the Bills. The Bills have an issue at defensive line in the sense that they have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
So let's go to the defensive tackles for a minute and talk about Harrison Phillips, who ate up a lot of space and
I did notice that
had numerous pushes into the backfield.
Yeah,
with his like move to 3 guys technique on him too.
Yeah,
his move from 3 to 1
strong.
He looked strong and big, and that's what we needed to see. Because right now, again, you can take this into account, their depth, when they released the initial depth chart, whatever. Because they did release the initial depth chart this week. Before
they had
the
him
game.
as DT3.
Yes. He was listed third on that defensive tackle side. And so I think he made a nice push. Didn't see Justin Zimmer at all. I don't know if he was hurt.
I saw him, but I didn't see him because I only took note of him in my notes here. I said I saw Justin Zimmer, but that's it. I just saw him. It was literally I saw his jersey. I'm like, all right, there's Zimmer, but like it was nothing.
The other
nothing
guys
good or bad for what that's worth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other guys who stood out was almost everyone else.
Yeah.
Which really at defensive tackle.
Well. Yeah.
At defensive tackle.
And defensive end at defensive tackle stood out in Obata.
Obata looked solid to me.
Yeah.
I think he's making this team. I really do.
He's the power rusher. Because now we have speed guys. I feel like he's going to be one of those. I would love to see them
push the
kick him
tackle
inside.
back.
Well, he just showed that he can play inside.
They do play.
Yeah.
I mean,
they did play him inside, and he does practice outside and inside.
Yeah.
So, at 265, you have to have some power. Coming from Carolina, I think he's pretty much a lock. Those Carolina, connections seem to.
He's also from the UK.
Seem to stick. Yeah, he has a nice accent, so maybe he'll become a fan favorite.
Right.
Did you see his interview that he did?
No,
he's such a good interview. His press conference the other day from training camp. It's so good.
I saw an interview with him and Christian Wade together, with Wade having the Australian accent and Obata Wade's England
UK too,
right?
Yeah, they're both UK guys.
Yeah, and so it was really weird when they were talking because you just don't get that in the NFL.
Yeah, at all. I love it.
It's cool.
I remember Obata from when Carolina was on Hard Knocks, and he had like a good portion, I think, of like the second episode devoted to him, like in his story, because that was the first year he made, or the second year he came over and made the switch. And I remember him from Hard Knocks because I remember him being like super nice and being like, this is awesome. Just being like, I can't believe I'm here right now, kind of thing. Like,
yeah. And he said the same thing in a couple interviews here. He's like, I got to a second team.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like I got another contract kind of thing.
The one thing I'll say about Obata that I didn't like, and I don't know that he really could have prevented it. It was the roughing the passer call that he had.
I thought that was a cheap call.
I thought all of the roughing the passer calls were pretty cheap.
He seemed to get pushed into him. To me,
he did. I would have liked to see him recognize that he got blocked into the quarterback, was going down low, but he definitely tried to wrap up at the leg. And if he would have just went to the ground and like crashed into the quarterback,
the hands thing, right?
I don't think I would have. But the fact that he still tried to follow through with the tackle and he swooped his arm around to hook the leg.
How many yards do you think he ran to get there though? I mean,
more than it cost them for the penalty.
He looked fast on that.
Yeah.
On that.
The tackle had no chance.
I think he just got around the tackle and had so much momentum going that any kind of push just pushed him into the quarterback. And there really wasn't much he could do because he's just thinking, get after it.
And it did look like he was trying to hook the ankle with his hand. It didn't look like he was trying to go for the knee or anything. Like it was. It didn't look like it was dirty by any means. That's not what I mean. But like I would have liked to see him just like do some kind of motion to, at least if it gets called at that point, if you crash into the guy, but you throw your arms up as you're going down because you're being blocked into him, then at least like I could say, oh, okay, but you knew you were going low, like you got blocked low into the quarterback, so you could see that you're starting to head towards his leg area. I mean, maybe that's what he tried to do, was to just, rather than crash into the guy, try to loop his feet and get him down before making contact. But besides that, I thought he looked like the most powerful of all of our edge rushers from a physicality standpoint. I would give everybody else, and I think Basham's going to end up being that guy too, because Basham's body frame reminds me of oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Shaq Lawson. He reminds me of that Shaq Lawson type of body frame, where like he's got some thick legs.
I was gonna say Frank Clark. So
he's definitely got that body frame though, like where it doesn't look like he's ever gonna be a Rousseau type or even like Epinesa. He's gonna be more that power guy. So I would like to see Basham and Obata more on the same line in the rotation, and I'd love to see
run
them
defense.
Yeah, and then keep Epinesa and Rousseau for those speed rush kind of situations where you know, it's 3rd and 10. You know they're gonna don't give them time to get that 10-yard route ran. Those two, like tackles gonna have problems this year.
You have to remember though that neither Addison nor Hughes played. So what are you gonna do on 3rd and 10, right? When you've got guys already in your head who aren't Adams or Addison or Hughes, and you know Hughes is going to be in there on 3rd and 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really kind of what they have said about Addison is they're going to use him in specific roles.
Yeah. Which also makes me think that he's going to retire
soon.
Either after or like
mid-season,
not mid-season, but
please
like he's either going to immediately after the season is over, he's going to retire, or it's going to be like an off-season thing. But I have a really good feeling that this might be Addison's last year,
which I be perfect for the Bills. And then they'll extend Hughes, or Hughes might retire too.
I think they're going to want one vet in the room. And I think if they can get Hughes on a team-friendly deal to close out his career, because I don't think Hughes is going to want to stop playing after this year, but I also don't think he's going to want to go to another team. So I think
I agree with that.
There'll be a conversation.
I guess my thought was if he retires, he's going to retire because he's done.
And we won the Super Bowl. Like, I think that's the only way Hughes retires.
Yeah. Then they both retire, maybe.
I can see that.
And then your veteran in the room is someone like Phillips or something. I don't know.
Like Epinesa.
Epinesa's your veteran.
That's what you got.
or they bring in.
I'll tell you what, he puts up a 10+ sack season, and he could be the vet all he wants.
Yeah. Or a million pressures. You know, I mean, whatever he does.
Here's the thing, though. Epinesa was not noticeable compared to these other guys.
Epinesa seemed like Basham. The thing I noticed about Basham was he was still playing in the 4th quarter.
Yes.
Which means they were not happy with what he was doing. And
because they stopped Rousseau like
I
right away.
Say that
like the second that group came out, I don't think we saw him for like the rest of the game, and maybe in like a punt, but like that was it. Like they were like, "You got your sack, okay? Thanks."
Yeah. So I want to talk about defensive tackles real quick. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, actually, right to that point, actually, one of my early notes from the first quarter was that first sack on Goff that Rousseau got credited with. The 4 people that were on the line were Phillips, Oliver, Epinesa, and Rousseau, and all 4 of them beat their blocks. All 4 of them got into the quarterback, and like
any one of them would have had the sack.
The best part about that Rousseau sack, though, is that that length and those hands we've been talking about.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he did.
And we thought that it was going to be
that.
Yeah,
it was like he was like the big brother with the little brother, just holding his head back.
What were we calling?
We touch me. Like
we said that Rousseau kept getting cleanup sacks in college 2 years ago, right? Like that's a lot of what it looked like was happening.
Especially those.
I'm willing to reevaluate.
Like he just got there after
his length. His length gets him there. Like he doesn't even have to fully beat a guy, and that's the impressive thing that I saw last night is he didn't even have guys beat clean. Sometimes they still had hands on him, at least up near the upper arms, not quite to his chest, because he could just like sun people.
That sack, he immediately jumped up and hadn't even moved yet, and he already had disengaged the blocker or had the blocker disengaged from him.
Yeah,
like he hadn't moved.
Insane.
Besides just the ball was snapped and he was getting up. You know what I mean? So like, the fact that he's able to do that is great. And the fact that he's farther along to a certain extent than we thought with that is even better.
Yeah. I think that bodes really well because that's exactly what we need this season, right? Like we keep hearing preached over and over and over again, even by McDermott himself is, it was a pass rush last year. Like that's the one thing that we thought we needed to get better at. And if Rousseau turns into that dude far quicker than we anticipated, yes, sign me up for the AFC Championship.
Even if Basham is still a project, and even if Rousseau is still a project, like we were saying, we didn't see Hughes, we didn't see Addison, we We didn't see Star.
And we're still talking about how good the rush was.
Right.
That's the thing too. Like it's making it really difficult on these coaches.
Stop. I mean, they stopped the run too. Until the fourth quarter with the guy who had never even met the rest of the team came in.
Yeah.
For the Lions and scored. But I think that's just something the Bills didn't expect more than anything. Another thing I noticed about the defensive tackles in the fourth, Hester, I don't remember his first name. Trayvon Hester, of course. He was playing in the first quarter and he was making some pushes into the backfield too, because I put Hester moves the line on my notes, and Brandon Bryan also played a heck of a fourth quarter. He seemed to be everywhere. But speaking of guys who seem to be everywhere, let's talk about Andre Smith and Joe Giles Harris.
Andre Smith is that dude,
isn't he?
He's making the team.
So the Bills typically have carried 5 linebackers, right? And we know 3, unless they're going to shock us with Klein, but we know 3, right? And so the push then is Andre Smith. Well, and I think we probably know 4 because
Matakevich is going to make it because of special teams.
Milano,
so really, there's
Edmonds, Klein, Matakevich,
right?
So there's one more spot.
There's really one spot, and so this is. I think they can get away stashing Joe Giles Harris probably on the practice squad.
Yeah,
I think they can also get away with that with Mike Bell too.
With Mike Bell,
like if they were to lose, I'm saying if they were to lose Harris, like let's say they try to put him on the squad, he doesn't make it through waivers. I think if they could do it with Mike Bell, and it's still, there's definitely a gap there. There's a big gap, but if you're putting Mike Bell on the practice squad and having him learn, I think there is the potential.
Yeah, I don't think his ceiling is too far.
He was also another guy that was all over the place.
I'm taking Andre Smith over Dodson right now, though.
Definitely.
Without question.
I mean, that interception by Smith,
I like Dodson,
holy crap.
Yeah, the interception that got called back, but it was still
wasn't his fault.
Yeah, not at all. But yeah, that was a heck of an interception. I was tracking good plays for both of those players after a while. Giles Harris had some nice pressure. He also played well in pass defense. I thought the same about Adams, that he played well in pass defense and run defense. And Dodson didn't do a whole lot. I kind of had 2 check marks for Dodson, and I had 8 for Harris and 7 for Andre Smith.
And the thing that I noticed was that Dodson was out there for a significant, and then all of a sudden he just wasn't.
He just wasn't
anymore.
Yeah.
Like not even like even
it almost seemed to me like they wanted to see the guys even lower than him on the depth chart, because it became pretty clear that like, hey, look, I don't think Dotson's gonna make the team. So like, let's see.
That's almost how I
look
felt
at other
when
people.
I was watching because I was like, oh, either that or he is, and they're just like, let's get the other guys some love from other teams.
Yeah,
who are watching.
Well, I mean, Dodson and Smith,
because our third stringers seem to be better than the Lions' first stringers. So,
yeah, I've got like 2 minutes if you guys don't mind me giving some quick final thoughts. I'm gonna let you guys get into the offense. I just got a couple final thoughts that I had written down on defense, and then I'm gonna skedaddle out of here. And then next preseason game, I'll be live afterwards, not right afterwards, but I'll be back in my normal schedule next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed Hamlin a few times, and I want to talk about that real quick. And because I saw him sometimes for good reasons, and then I saw him sometimes for bad reasons. And the bad reasons is one single characteristic of his that he needs to clean up between now and end of preseason game 3. Otherwise, he stands to potentially not be one of the 4 safeties that are kept if we keep 4. And that's the missed tackles. Like that was super noticeable. And it was all on the ones where he was trying to dive for somebody's legs instead of like
he overcommits.
He does overcommit.
He definitely did. Now, from a coverage standpoint and playing, off the line and not trying to get into the box, it seemed like he did that all right. Like his coverage skills seemed to be serviceable.
Okay.
I mean, he's a rookie, so I mean, he has to learn the
that.
certain.
He definitely seemed like he had the instincts there. It's not that the speed hasn't caught all the way up. So we'll have to see how that progresses in games 2 and 3. But the missed tackles is something I'm going to be keeping an eye on moving forward, because I really see him as the first man up behind Hayden Poyer, and unless he shows a little bit of growth in those areas, if he misses tackles, McDermott's not going to let him on the field. Like, it's just not. No. McDermott in his secondary is all about being able to tackle, and that's just, I guarantee you he's hearing about it today. I guarantee you he's hearing about it today.
I'm sure he wasn't the only one on that defense who was hearing about it either.
Yeah, there was a lot of missed tackles, and a lot of them were bubble guys that aren't going to make the roster. Like, I didn't see it out of many of the second string guys. Like, I wasn't seeing Levi Wallace. I saw Dane Jackson a couple times whiff on a couple tackles in the same manner, where like he overcommitted and then missed the shoestring. So now the guy's off for another 5 yards.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the last point I want to make, in that I think, barring something crazy, Levi Wallace is 100% CB2.
He's locked in.
I want Jackson to eventually become that, and maybe he'll be that after the ups and downs of another season, because I think he shows flashes, but the consistency isn't there. And meanwhile, Levi Wallace, back to the ball, deep into the end zone, turns his head, throws his hand up, knocks it down beautifully.
Great play.
That was unbelievable play. Like, he made one of those last year without looking. And this one, it was like he finally recognized to turn his head, not just guess when he sees the receiver put his hands up. So it was nice seeing him turn his head and be facing the ball, because that contact that was made, if you're then facing the ball, the ref is going to be far less likely to call it. And if he wouldn't have turned his head, I think that gets called as PI. And I think that Detroit has the ball at the 1, but he spun around, knocked it down, and it was just an absolutely.
I thought he had enough distance. I thought he had enough distance. I think I just think it was a great play more than anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
it absolutely was.
It's again, when we talk about IQ, he has IQ.
Yeah.
Right. And he may not have all of the tools and all of the physical skills that you're looking for as a starting cornerback, but he does, because he makes up for it with his smarts.
Yeah.
And he makes up for it by being in the right place at the right time and that kind of thing. And the other thing about him almost being locked in at CB2 is that when I was watching the game, 2 of my notes were Elijah Griffin is lost. And Wild Goose was completely lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so when you're looking at them and you're thinking, okay, maybe someone else is going to step up,
like Nick McLeod,
no,
or McLeod or whoever, I mean, those guys,
Cam Lewis, like I don't know if McLeod's
not making the team.
Yeah.
I don't think Wild Goose is making the team.
I think Dane's gonna make the 53, but I don't think that. But it's gonna be. We're gonna see the top 2 guys. We're gonna see Trey White. We're gonna see Levi Wallace. We're gonna see Taron Johnson. We're gonna see Dane Jackson, and maybe a 5th. But because they need a backup that could play inside, and I would trust Saran Neal over Dane Jackson
as of right now. Yeah,
or Dane Jackson or Cam Lewis, right?
If they start putting Dane Jackson in the slot just to kind of see what he's got, I'd like to see that. In the second game, I didn't see much of that. They primarily looked like they had him lining up outside, but it's gonna be interesting seeing
a lot of man.
Yeah,
they did play a lot of man,
which I'm hoping is because they realize that they may have to do that against teams like the Chiefs,
right?
And I think that was really just a testing ground for that. And I'm glad they did it, because it showed me that, like, at least CBs 2 and 3, like, I don't know about Trey. I haven't seen Trey play a lot of man lately because they primarily play zone, but Trey's athleticism would help him. I know he wasn't always
good,
known
man.
for, it's good enough. It won't take away from his elite, play at all if he has to run a little man. But it'd be nice to see some guys, like, they find out that they got some guys that are way better at man than they are at zone, and it's like an ace up your sleeve in those obvious passing situations when you're facing the Chiefs. And hey, let's hope the pass rush gets home, and there are just not these extended routes. But if there are, we need a guy or 2 that could just lock up a guy. Like, okay, cool. Like, everything outside's covered. But with that, I think I hear the delivery truck pulling up outside. So
okay.
Take off.
Can I get one more opinion from you?
Yeah, right. What do you got?
Can I get one more opinion?
Yeah.
Tight end 2, Hollister or Tommy Sweeney?
Tommy Sweeney, 1,000%. locked it in, 100%. And I'm
I
here
felt the
for
same.
I felt the same as well.
I thought he looked awesome.
He looked
Yeah.
incredible.
Even
I loved
blocking
it.
too.
I'm happy
He was
for him.
like,
He's such a
he
good story
pancaked
too.
a couple
Yeah,
guys.
it's a great
Yeah.
story. So, all right,
Phenomenal.
go move.
Yeah, go.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you guys later.
Yep. Thanks.
And-
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
So we're still live post
got
game.
the
Noah
offense.
and Todd. We're gonna talk offense. We're gonna talk special teams.
Yeah.
We can continue to talk defense if we have more defense to talk.
I mean, we talked about the tackling. Yeah, Griffin was a yikes. I think if McLeod keeps having good games, I think there is a conversation to at least be have. Well, I mean, when you think about guys like Wild Goose and, you know, Cam Lewis being either in the same boat or in front of him,
Cam Lewis,
I
think Cam Lewis is ahead of McLeod right now. What I saw out of Cam Lewis, and obviously we didn't get to talk about this with Paul, but I would have liked to have this conversation because he was talking about Dane showing flashes. I thought Cam Lewis showed flashes, and the thing about the flashes that Cam Lewis showed, I thought they were at a higher level than what I saw from Dane Jackson, but his poor play when he made poor play on the field was also worse.
Was very bad. Like they were bad mistakes
for Cam Lewis.
Like,
I mean,
well,
for what I'm saying is okay, don't group Lewis in, and this is kind of what I'm saying. Don't group Lewis in with Wild Goose, Elijah Griffin.
No.
And I would put McLeod in with.
I would put McLeod in that group too, but I'm
Wild
saying
Goose
like
and Elijah
I
Griffin.
think McLeod did have a good game. Yeah, he had like his missteps, but I think like we're right. It's going to be White, Johnson, Wallace, Neal, and then you're fighting for one spot, 1 to 2 potentially.
Right.
I think Dane Jackson gets that, but I think if they end up keeping 6, it's really going to come down to McLeod and Lewis, unless Wild Goose somehow figures it out and Griffin stops having an attitude every single time he gives up a big play and just shuts up.
Yeah.
Every single time he did something wrong, he was over there talking. But it wasn't like why is this happening? What's going on?
Thing,
yeah.
So let's switch. Let me see if I had other stuff on the defense.
That was all. Oh, and I think we're gonna see a lot of bend don't break this year. That's my other thing with the defense.
But if you remember last year, we talked about that a million times.
We did,
right? That this defense is a bend don't break defense,
mm-hmm.
And so with that in mind, you know, we're gonna see that again. But we also have to remember that starters didn't play.
Yeah,
a lot of starters didn't play. And not just on the line,
mm-hmm.
but it was Edmonds, it was Trey,
it
was Poyer, it was Hyde.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put all of that together and say they were playing against Detroit's starters
mm-hmm.
without all of those guys
giving up 3 points,
right?
For the whole first half, and they, like I said earlier, they kept them to 2.7 yards as their average.
Right.
I would really like to see what their average was with just Goff in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it's probably not that high because he only had the one good drive that resulted in 3 points after 17 plays.
But if you're Detroit, are you sitting here and you're saying, well, we held Trubisky? I mean,
but that was different though.
It's I guess he only had 2 pass attempts.
He only had 2 pass attempts, and they ran it the rest of the time. So like you can't really sit there and say, yeah, we shut down Trubisky when he only had 1 pass attempt and he completed one of them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So like, I don't think you can sit there in Detroit and be like, yeah, we did all this stuff when like you really didn't, because Singletary and Breida combined for 69 yards on 18 carries against those guys. So, and I mean, that's not fantastic, but like also Devin Singletary, I think, had about 40 yards that game.
Mm-hmm.
So 42 yards on 8 attempts, and he had a 5.3 average. So that's not really, they didn't really shut anybody down necessarily. And he had the TD catch as well. That was wide open and completely blown coverage. So
completely blown, but the fact that he caught it and didn't have stone hands
or tripped over himself
in a situation where, you know, a lot of players Knox might drop that ball.
Dawson Knox caught his one, so you might not have to talk about him in therapy.
I don't know. I think Tommy Sweeney's a starter by game 4.
Oh, hey.
I'm serious. I think he is. I think he looked really good. I think he looked big and that he can move, but he's a nice target.
I would like to see him play against not third stringers.
He wasn't though. He was in there in the beginning when they were going to tight end sets. He was playing, I thought, ahead of Hollister.
I think he was just playing with Hollister, but I felt like Hollister was more out there when they needed just one tight end. But he did have 34 yards on 2 receptions, and his average was 17. So, and because his longest was 18. So, but yeah, because he caught that one really good deep pass. I mean, he didn't look bad. I'm not saying that. I do think he played better than Hollister. I do though think they keep 3 tight ends.
It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to do because Gilliam they're gonna keep.
Yeah, but he's listed as a fullback.
He is. So. No, and he is a fullback.
Yeah. I mean, and he looked good actually. I was like,
I'm not. That's why I'm saying they're gonna keep him.
They gave him those couple running plays, and you were like, okay, all right.
I think Taiwan Jones is in trouble.
I think so too.
There's just guys who when your team is so deep that you have to they're gonna cut talented guys or guys who they may need. I mean, we know Taiwan Jones is a specialist. And you know, what else does he do for you? How many special team specialists can you keep, right?
Yeah.
That may come down to Taiwan Jones and Daryl Johnson.
Yeah.
But Johnson helped you in other ways, right?
And he looked like he didn't look that bad.
Johnson?
He was there a couple times in the backfield.
He had good pressure.
He had some good pressure. I don't know.
He reminded me of a poor man's Rousseau.
He did have a sack. He had 2 tackles and a sack. So I mean, he was there.
He's tall, he's lengthy, and he's fast.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you have a guy like that, and he's a special teams ace,
right?
And so when you have a guy like that, I think you're in a hard spot. You know, when you talk about the defensive line and all the guys, right? But I think they have to keep. I don't know that they have to. I mean, we have 2 more games to evaluate, I guess.
Well, they're gonna cut 5. I think Tuesday.
Today.
Or is it today?
I think
is it right after?
I think it's either today or tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, I don't think Johnson's going to be a part of that 5. I mean, I think we can probably come up with those 5. I
easily. Let's look.
Bobby Hart.
Well, who is Cyrus Tudele? You know, I mean, it's 5 guys. Yeah. I think Eli Anku can go.
Yeah.
Mike Love, maybe. Look, Mike Love has shown stuff in the past, but there's so much talent. There's so much talent ahead of him. How is he even going to see the field this year?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you just know that these guys, and even if you're going to play backup guys, Mike Love is still not going to see the field if you're going to play backups in these next two games.
I think there's a chance Antonio Williams might be a part of that.
The only reason I'll say not is because Zach Moss is banged up.
Yeah. So he might not be part of this group, but I don't think
he'll make the team. Roster. I thought Matt Breida looked lazy, but I think he just knows he's making the team.
Yeah. But I think the thing with Williams is that, like, we saw, you know, when he played in that one game last year, obviously we saw, oh man, he's great. But then I think in this game we noticed, but still, he still had a really great game, and everybody was like, oh wow. I think we saw though with this is that he is a one-trick pony. He runs straight, he runs hard, and that's it.
Right. Like, which isn't a bad thing to have.
But don't you already kind of have that in Moss? And the other thing with Moss and but not even that though, is like Moss and Singletary know how to cut, they know how to spin, they know how to juke, they know how to make guys miss. It was like Williams would just be like, and that's it.
I'm either gonna hit a hole or I'm gonna hit a lineman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it, like, you never really saw him like cut. You never really saw him like, you just saw him use speed and power and just go straight. and whatever happened was what happened. And that's why, you know, he really, his stat line for this game was 2.1 yards a carry, 15 rush yards on 7 attempts. And that is part of the reason is
we don't need to focus on Williams. He's not making the team. Running backs are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to that, the thing about Williams is he either gets on the practice squad or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, then you go and you find another linebacker or another running back. And you put him on the practice squad and you say, okay, we have a guy just in case. Because, and it may not even be just in case, it's because Moss and Singletary haven't shown that they can stay healthy.
Right.
And neither is Matt Breida, to be honest. And so here's what I saw with the running backs. I saw that Singletary still, okay. Singletary looked good, right?
Yes.
But he looked good between the tackles.
Yes.
And I think that if Singletary's in the game, teams are going to know that they're going to run between the tackles because Singletary did not show that he can get to the outside corner.
He just can't turn it. Like there's something there where it's like he is able to get out there, but it's like he can't turn up the field enough.
He gets close. I always feel like he's just right behind the tackle.
Right. Like he's like right there about ready to break out. And then it's like he tries to make his cut and like he makes it like half a second too late. And then he gets tackled.
I think he's just one step or half a step even too slow.
Yeah.
I think he's just too slow. I mean, the thing I saw about Breida was he was able to take those sweeps and those outside tackle runs, and he was able to get there.
Yeah.
They ran him up the middle a couple times as well. He was able to do it. You know, my guess is he didn't have good stats. But
he had 2.7, 27 rush yards on 10 attempts.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't think he had good stats, but I think what he showed was he can get to the outside, which neither of our other running backs can do.
Right. But I mean, with Singletary though, even though he was only able to run in between the tackles, he still did well. Like, because I feel like the thing we never really saw from him last year.
Yes, I'm not saying he didn't do well.
No, I know that, but I mean, like the thing we saw with Singletary last year was like the weight, obviously. Like he was not big enough to really like put that shoulder down and like drive a pile. And that was something that we saw from him. So like you definitely can see in Singletary, like the work that he put in is actually like helping him. Like we know about all these guys who do all this work during the off season. And like, even though they do it, they still come out look exactly the same.
His cuts look better. I definitely
he
will
looks
say that.
Bigger. He looks more stronger. He doesn't look faster.
He looks more ripped.
But
right?
Yeah.
And hopefully that means healthier.
He looks like also that he's able to use his body better.
Which may come down to the fat percentage being at 2%, or whatever. You know, that he can just control everything better. But
that's what it just seems like. Like he was able to just kind of put it together and control it well. Like I agree with you. I don't think he's fast enough to really break it on the outside yet. I don't know if you can improve that with him either.
I don't know how you make somebody faster.
That's like, I mean, we said the same. We don't know how you can improve in completion percentage with a quarterback, but there's Josh Allen and he did every single year. So
it's different though, I think, with running backs or with receivers trying to make guys faster. I mean, unless you're running track and field, right? Or something like that, where, you know, you really can focus on speed.
Yeah.
I mean, but his focus is on making plays, being there for pass blocking, trying to make the runs. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. My fear with Singletary is that if he's in the game, teams are going to know he's running inside.
Yeah.
Well, so then they're just going to fill the lanes inside and say, sorry, dude, you're not going to get anywhere. And that may be where Moss comes in and shows something, I hope.
Or you're putting in a big set with Spencer Brown right next to Deion Dawkins and you're going, okay, try to get around these guys then. Fine, you're going to fill all the holes inside. Okay, we're going to swing with the two best tackles on the team at this. Like,
well, Spencer Brown isn't the best tackle. He's your swing tackle.
No, I know. I meant like, yeah.
and he's definitely showing that what's his face?
Doyle?
No, Darrell Williams is going to be needed.
Yes.
So there was talk about Williams possibly being cut because of his cap space and whatever. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
Especially with Bobby Hart as his backup. Ike Butker at guard didn't do a whole lot for me.
Cody Ford, though.
Cody Ford looked okay.
Looked really, especially coming back. Like, he didn't look amazing.
Right.
But the fact that he was able to come back from that ACL tear and actually be like, oh, he didn't give up anything.
Right.
To be able to do that is impressive in itself. He didn't give up a sack.
Yep.
I think he had one or two pancakes. Yeah. He was there a couple times on running pace, swinging or opening holes. It was a really good, impressive game for him. And I think that showed that he can be there. He can be a start. Like, he should be a starter, in my opinion.
I mean, unless Ryan Bates comes on, I kind of like what Jamil Douglas showed. Unless I thought Ryan Bates didn't look right at center.
And then they removed him and put in Douglas in there. And then Douglas opened this huge hole that I think got like 10 yards on a running play. And I was like, who the heck is that? And then they were like, Jamil Douglas. And I was like, that's a big dude.
Yeah.
And then he was playing center because I remember being like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to him. I'm going to pay attention to number 77. And he lined up at center.
Okay. I liked his game. I liked, you can tell when offensive linemen are playing well. It's hard to tell when offensive linemen are playing well, but you can tell when they're playing well based on whether they're standing and the guys around them are on the ground.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
and that's how I felt when I was seeing Douglas, when they kept showing Douglas. I was like, the guys around him are on the ground and he's standing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, that's a good thing.
And it's not like he was standing there with nothing to do. Like, he was standing there engaged with the linebacker, engaged with the safety, engaged with the defensive end.
And it's like he knocked guys down.
Yeah.
He knocked guys over. And, Ryan Bates didn't look right to me. He just didn't look right. And I don't know if that's out of position or, I think he was a tackle at one point. And then they moved him to guard, and then they moved him to center, and then so he may not be getting a completely fair shake right now, which is why again I want to see the other two games, but and hear more about what they're saying and about how these guys are practicing and that kind of thing. But Douglas was a nice surprise. Spencer Brown was okay.
He was good enough for being a rookie. Like, there wasn't anything in his game where I was like, oh my God, he cannot be the swing tackle.
If Dawkins goes down though, I'm gonna sit there and go,
worry.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean,
that's the blind side.
If Dawkins goes down, you move Darrell Williams to left tackle, I think, and then you put in. And then you have to put in Spencer Brown at right tackle unless you find again that Ryan Bates can move up and down the line.
Yeah.
Or they can find someone else through cuts. Right. Yeah.
Because it would be really nice to just store Spencer Brown, never really have him take a real snap besides being a swing tackle, and have him just do that all year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, injuries are going to happen, but I completely agree with you. I mean, I don't know if I trust Spencer Brown right now to protect Josh Allen's blind side. And if there is one thing that definitely needs to be protected on this team, it is his blind side. Because if Spencer Brown gets beat by like Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald has a free shot to take at Josh Allen, I hope to God his back does not crack. Like, or Khalil Mack.
That's
like,
one of the things about being tall, that's a detriment to Josh Allen, is that when guys come at him, their helmet is hitting his back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But whatever, he's a superhero. So, but I do think the Bills found their quarterback of the future in Joe Webb.
Davis Webb.
Oh man, they're two separate people, aren't they?
Yeah.
Joe Webb was a quarterback though.
Was
right?
a quarterback for us at a certain point.
At a certain point.
He did the Blizzard game where we came back in overtime against Indy. He was the quarterback for that.
Okay. I feel so much better because I kept going. Why did I think his name was Joe? Why did I think his name was Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a big thing. I saw a story on Davis Webb and they talked about this during the show. Or during the game. But about Davis Webb wanting to become a coach and that eventually he's going to become a coach, which I think is awesome. And I really hope that he stays with the Bills.
Yeah.
And I'm actually curious and thinking he might beat out Jake Fromm.
I was gonna say that.
Is that your hot take?
No, but I was gonna say that.
I think
it's not that Fromm is bad, but it's like it's more like do you really need them both?
He looked like a third quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think if you try to stash Fromm on again, he'll get picked up.
Not even that, but it's like, do you need to?
No, I mean
that's the other part.
I think they'll cut one of them, right?
Yeah.
And I think with the way that Webb played last night, it's almost like, we can't stash him on the practice squad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then you're going to have to decide how who you want to risk losing. And it seems like Webb has a much better grasp of the offense and that Josh maybe has his trust a little bit more. Because it seemed like when Fromm was in that Josh was over with Fromm teaching.
Yes.
Whereas with Webb, it was more like they were having a mutual conversation.
Well, and it was also the interesting thing was when Trubisky and Webb were in, every single time there would be the quarterback meeting, it would be all four. It would be all four. They would be all talking about what just happened, what just occurred, blah, 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 doing what normal things do. But I completely agree with you. Every single time Fromm came out, it was just Allen. Like it wasn't the four of them. It was Dorsey and Allen sitting there talking to Fromm, flipping through the Microsoft thing, the surface, and being like, okay, here, this guy was open here, but you ended up down, doing the stuff that they do. And you're right. It was Allen, it was Dorsey, it was in Trubisky and Webb were not there.
Right.
But when they were in the game, it was all four, all just standing there and talking with no Dorsey, which I thought was also surprising.
Yeah, I saw Dorsey talking to Webb a couple times, but Dorsey really was focused on Fromm.
But it also with Dorsey and Webb, it wasn't like a long conversation. It was either like you did good, or it was like pay attention next time, and he just like walked away. Like it wasn't
right. Because it seems like Webb knows what he's doing.
I mean, that was the thing about Webb, right? Was like he's 26 and he was the 3rd round pick in 2017. By the Giants. He has had playing experience before, but he also hadn't played, just like Fromm, for 2 years.
Ever. He had never played another team.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm saying, he got like preseason reps, I think, with the Giants, but he had
not against another team.
Oh, really?
They said this was the first time he has played a down against another team.
I thought they were saying this was with okay, I thought
they said that with Fromm too.
Yeah, well, with Fromm that was obvious because he was the quarantine quarterback last year. But I thought they were saying with Webb, it was the same thing, but he had experience before. He just hadn't had the ability, in 2 years or something. I thought that was the thing.
Here's what I'm gonna say about Webb is I would be much more comfortable with him as the quarantine quarterback than Fromm.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Fromm looked very like they were telling him where to throw the ball.
Right.
Or they were like,
lock down one receiver.
This is your guy that you're going to throw the ball to. Right. If it's not there, figure it out.
Right.
And when that would happen, he would either try to run or he'd get sacked or he would get sacked.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Webb even tried to run a couple of times and he looked
like a slower Josh.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I was like, okay.
He also ran at the right times.
Yes.
Where it's with Josh, where it's he can make the decision whenever he wants to. He can go. But it was with Webb, it was everybody was covered, but no one's covering that left side of the field.
Right. So I'm going to take that
off for a
hole,
12-yard
I'm
game.
going to slide, and then I'm going to do all the right things. And
But like when they were marching,
I know my limitations.
Right. I think it was that touchdown drive, maybe, or it was like with 2 minutes left where he ran and immediately angled for the out of bounds. I was like, that's perfect.
Right.
I was like, you don't see that.
Right.
Like maybe Trubisky, Allen obviously would have done that. Trubisky would have done that, but I don't think you see that from Fromm.
Right.
And I was surprised to even see it from a guy like Webb, because I don't think you see that from those type of quarterbacks.
No, I agree. I completely agree. And I'm hoping Webb makes the team.
Yeah.
I mean, he may come out the next 2 games and just look awful.
But I mean, having a 68.8 completion percentage, 90 passing yards and a touchdown, and his rating on the day was a 103.6. He missed 5 passes. He was 11 of 16, and his average was 5.6.
That's what you want out of a third stringer.
Yeah, and this was from 8 of 13, 61.5%, 65 yards. Yeah.
No, he completed 1 of 2 passes.
That was Trubisky. I'm talking about Fromm.
Oh, Fromm.
Yeah, Fromm. Okay. Fromm was 8 of 13 with a 61.5, 65 yards, 5 average, and his longest obviously was the 42-yard pass to Stevenson, and his rating was a 74.2 with no touchdowns and no picks. And the nice thing, and I know Trubisky only threw 2 passes, but the nice thing that we saw from the quarterbacks was there were no interceptions.
No interceptions.
Like, I don't care how many passes you threw, but the fact that there was not 1 interception
or fumbles
from a backup quarterback, I think should make the Bills very happy, because if Josh goes down, you at least know
the ball's protected.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right. I mean, you're still going to have him.
I think
you're still going to have mistakes, but
honestly, from what we know about Trubisky, I think he protects the ball more than Josh.
Yes.
Because Josh, when he's running, he runs with the ball in one hand, and he had 9 fumbles last year.
And Josh also likes to take those chances, where Trubisky with Chicago was a lot more pulled back. And that was, I don't know if you saw this, but when they were talking to Trubisky before the game and they were talking about him, the differences between here and Chicago, one of the reasons why he wanted to come here was because he was like, I think I can come here and be like, look, I do have this arm that everybody talks about. I can do this. I can be a poor man's Josh Allen.
Yep.
And like, look at what I can do.
Right. And that'll be a starter somewhere next year.
Right. So, I mean, I know he only had 2 passes, but the one he completed was for 10 yards.
It was fine. He looked fine for a backup quarterback who is playing against starters who the Bills wanted to run the ball. Right. I mean, that was clearly what they wanted to do. They wanted to see what Singletary had and whether they could run block and whether their guards were okay. And their guards showed up and their guards played well. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was where I was at. Any surprises at wide receiver for you?
Even though his stat line is low, I do want to point out Brandon Powell, because I felt there were a couple, the catches he made were important. And it seemed like he had the trust, and I think it was of both Webb and Fromm, because I think he was in there for both. And yes,
which would make sense.
Yeah, and he was only 3 of 14, and that's not something. But like, there were a couple times where I noticed him, and like some of the catches he made were were good ones. Move the ball, move the change, whatever. And like it seemed, and they were some, and I remember one of them being tough, but I also remember him there on run plays too. Like he was there for run blocking. Like they ran the ball behind him as a wide receiver. Like he wasn't the lead blocker, but they still ran to his side. And I remember there at least being 1 or 2 run plays where he was the only wide receiver out there. And like, yes, obviously you want to do that, but you can put any wide receiver there. Like, honestly, in my head, I would think Hodgins is a better run blocker than him, because Hodgins is bigger. Hodgins is the bigger guy, but he looked good.
Hodgins got hurt again.
Hodges hurt his leg again. I don't think he makes the team. When
he got hurt, I rolled my eyes and
He
you can
might.
see him.
He honestly might be one of the first cuts.
No, there's guys there who
That's
you've
true.
just never heard of.
That's true.
Okay, they have to get from 90
To
85.
Right.
Okay,
And Bobby Hart's one of those guys. So,
or they think there's potential there and that there's something they can fix.
true, maybe.
With
Yeah.
Hart. But he had a bad game.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear you talk about Powell. He did not stick out to me.
It wasn't
the one thing where I said, okay, they're making connections with Powell, Lenore, and of course with Stevenson. Like the one thing that I was thinking was, okay, they play with these guys every day.
Yeah,
These
that
are the
was
guys.
also my
These
other
are the
part
guys
too.
who your third stringers play with every day. So you have the timing down between this set of players.
And yes, I agree with you on that, and that's why like it still made me hesitant because he was 3 for 14,
Mhm.
but there
You have
were
to say 3 receptions for 14 yards.
yes,
Not 3 passes.
yes,
for 14
he was
attempts.
3 receptions for 14 yards,
Mhm.
but it still there was the run blocking, but the other part of it was it seemed like he was the most trusted wide receiver on the field. Like that's the way I felt, and like
for
yes,
those backup guys.
for those backup guys. And
Yeah.
yes, you know, you're looking at it. Hodgins didn't play, last year. Stevenson, rookie, got it. Lenore wasn't even
Lenore
there.
could be one of the first cuts. He had a catch.
Tanner Gentry, though, was worse than he was. Tanner Gentry, I'm pretty sure, didn't have a catch.
Didn't do anything.
And the 2 times he was
couldn't
throwing
even
the
see him
ball,
on the field.
both of the times were his fault. Because if
Mhm.
you like kept running, the ball was in the right place. But he like stopped or like slowed down to try to like figure out where the ball is or something.
Yeah.
And it was weird. And it's like you can't do that
Yeah.
as a wide receiver.
They may
And-
not cut him because he's one of Josh's boys.
But
right
he
now,
is not making the practice squad. He is not making the roster unless like he does something significant.
unless
because
8 receivers get hurt.
Well, he just looked bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not have a good game yesterday. And there were 2 passes that were his fault. That were the ball, if he just kept running, he would have been able to catch it. But he like slowed down and let the DB catch up, and then it was broken up.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to say whoever was in at quarterback that they threw it a little slow, a little behind him, and that wasn't the case.
No,
the ball was in the right
Tasker
place. He
did
slowed down.
some terrible analysis.
I was getting annoyed because
He
there were a
was
couple of times with
awful.
Tasker where I was like, "That's not what happened."
Right. That's
not what
exactly what
happened.
I'm like. Were you even watching?
Right. Like there were a couple times where he just like also just like kept talking,
Right.
like while the play was going on, and then they just let him do that, and like he was talking about the play before,
Right.
and I'm like I get it to do
And
it
then-
with Cynthia Furland, right? Because she's the sideline person, she's talking about the sidelines.
She's also a big time person on NFL.
Oh, I know
Network.
that. She was also
couldn't
very
believe-
good last night.
Yeah,
I thought she was very good last night.
I was a little surprised
So
that
was
they got her
Yeah.
like to do this,
But she looked very good. She did seem a little nervous in the beginning,
Mhm.
but it seemed like the more times she talked to the microphone, the more times she was on camera, she seemed to become more comfortable.
Mhm.
Because I don't think she's normally on camera for NFL Network. I think she like does the video recordings and then they release like her like analysis and then she just goes on for segments. But like I think this was the first time where she was like a focal point.
I feel like I see her hosting something, but
She might host something. I don't know that for certain, but I remember her being their like stat person or
Okay.
one of their stat people. But to me, she just seemed a little nervous because there were a couple times where she like tripped over her words,
yeah,
where she was like talking like super really, really, really fast, and you were
Mhm.
like, hold on. Like,
but the producers may have said you have 27 seconds.
That's
so
true.
go. I mean, those are the things you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a producer sitting back in the producer booth
yeah, well,
right
yeah,
now,
absolutely. Yeah, that's why I
You know,
got my
tell-
AirPod.
telling us exactly how much time we have and all of that kind of stuff. So right now we have to go to commercial. No, I'm just kidding. But if somebody wants to be a producer, we are looking for producers and
I know we
designers and developers.
I
And
know,
all of that stuff. Go ahead.
I know we are talking about the offense, but there is something that I did want to bring up with the defense that I just saw that I wrote down. They had 4 sacks yesterday.
Yeah,
They had 4 sacks.
that was nice.
When's the last time we saw them had more than 2 sacks in a game? Like,
No, that was nice.
it was nice to see the defensive line just show up.
It was nice.
That's all.
Yeah,
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about penalties? Because to me, penalties in the preseason don't matter.
I mean, most of the penalties too were very ticky-tacky. Like there were a couple times where it was like, yeah, that was a penalty, but like I also feel like that Basham, I don't think that gets called in the regular season.
Or the Obata one.
Well, I also don't think like the defensive holdings that we got get called either.
Yeah.
Because then there was the one penalty, I think that was called on Griffin.
Yeah.
And it was either taunting or
it wasn't taunting.
What was it? And it was like he didn't even do anything.
Yeah. I felt like there were a lot of those phantom penalties.
I thought there were at least 5 where I was like, I don't know if that gets called in the regular season.
Right.
Also, Sean Hockley like is anal about the rule book too.
Well, his dad was the head of refereeing or whatever. So
like I also think that's part of it because like that's also another thing about Sean Hockley is like when he is the head referee, he calls a lot more penalties when it's like him and his group compared to other refs. And a lot of them are like by the rule book, this is what I saw. Like, but like there were a couple like I think it was the fumble maybe where it was like the judge, the sky judge literally could have looked at it
but chose not to.
Yeah. And it was like, and we got a penalty on that somehow.
Yeah.
And it was like, if they just went to go review it, if they just went to go review it first, they would have saw that Detroit turned over the ball to us and that penalty shouldn't have existed.
Right.
But since they didn't, the penalty did. And like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is definitely WTF penalties because there were 9 and you're going, what the hell with a McDermott run team? But it's also the preseason for both us and the referees. So
right. I'm surprised Tasker didn't say that it's preseason for the referees too.
Well, yeah, because there were a couple times where it was like, what are you doing?
So
why are you spending 15 minutes to talk to each other?
Right. My thing with penalties, the Bills were penalized a lot last year. It wasn't ever something people really cared about.
Yeah.
Because they were able to overcome them. And that's kind of where I stand with penalties is they're able to overcome them most of the time. So get penalized, do whatever you need to do, but you have a bend, don't break defense. And it might even be a little more stiffer this year, based upon the fact that we saw second teamers dominate a first team, even though that's the Lions. And Dan Campbell's first game, which if I'm in Detroit right now, I'm not happy with the way he coached.
Especially after being like, oh my God, Matt Patricia's gone. And then you have Dan Campbell come in and you're like, oh no.
Well, they weren't. They're not. I mean, they're like, he came in and he pumped up and said, we're going to. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'm saying now, though, like maybe after I would really like to see what Lions fans are saying because like that end of the game.
I just think he didn't coach well at all throughout the entire game.
Well, I just think that end of the game was the cherry on top to the bad coaching.
Not calling the timeouts, you mean?
Well, not calling the timeouts, but then like there were like it was like 3rd and like 2, and if you just ran the ball, you could have gotten it, but they passed, and then the quarterback overthrew the wide receiver. They could have ran out the ball. The time.
Yeah,
they could have literally probably run out the clock, left us with 30 seconds left, but they decided to pass 3 times in a row.
That was
and every single one was incomplete.
Right.
Like, but both Campbell and McDermott said they were going to do different things in the preseason. So maybe that was a part of it. Yeah. Like, no, it wasn't. With McDermott, you could see it. With him, it wasn't.
Right. I agree. E.D. Stevenson.
Okay. Are you ready for my hot take? Because this is where it's coming.
All right.
Isaiah McKenzie does not make the team, and Stevenson makes it over him. You have to make the tough decisions. I'm sorry. What does Isaiah McKenzie do that is so much special that everybody loves him that Stevenson can't?
He's a gadget player.
So is Stevenson. You can't run the same end arounds with him. They're the same amount of speed.
or Stevenson's faster.
Yeah, I think Stevenson's faster, honestly.
I do too.
I think he looked 10 times better in the kicking and the punt returns. Yeah, cool. He didn't break it. He was close every single time. Every single time he put himself in a position to return that ball.
His returns looked much more natural and much more. He got further. He got more yards. I mean, it's pretty much that straight up. He got more yards on his returns. I would like to agree about McKenzie.
Yeah.
I would love. I don't want to say I would love for that to happen.
This is my I put money down on this one moment.
Okay.
So
how much? But I don't think it'll happen. I think with wide receivers, again, I know I've talked a lot about practice squad, but it's because there are 90 guys and they have to get down to 53. So I think
wide receivers of them are good.
Right. And so I think wide receivers are pretty easy to stash on a practice squad.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot easier to stash Stevenson than it would be to stash McKenzie.
Yeah.
And back to your Tanner Gentry point, I think they may even stash Tanner Gentry. I'm not sure. I think Tommy Doyle is definitely a practice squad guy.
And Jack Anderson. They didn't really, I mean, they were out there, but you didn't hear their name, which is good.
Right.
Except for one time, I think once or twice with Doyle.
Yeah.
But with Anderson, you never heard his name except, Jack Anderson's out there.
Right.
Which is great. But he also didn't do anything like Jameel Douglas or Spencer Brown, where you were like,
right.
Oh, you're creating holes. You're doing this stuff. It was
right.
like, he was just blocking, which is fine. And if that's what you have in Jack Anderson, that's what you have. It's always good to have guys who can block. Like, right. I don't remember being like, that was Anderson's fault or anything, which is a good, but he also didn't do anything where it's like, you have to keep him.
Right. At least at this point.
At this point right now, if you're looking at it. Yes. Right. Anderson didn't really do anything where you could be like, I'm going to lose him if I put him on the practice squad.
There's one piece, and I want to get your take on this, going back to what Paul said in the beginning when he gave us his rundown. Jaquan Johnson.
Yes.
How did you feel about him?
I don't think he helped himself.
Okay, I don't either. I was surprised,
especially with getting injured. Like, I understand that's not your fault, and like you're never gonna blame the player for the injury, because it's not like he's going out there and being like, I'm gonna tear my own ACL, right. But like the fact that he wasn't having the best game before the injury, and then the injury happened, and then you didn't get to see anything else.
See, Paul said Jaquan Johnson stood out to him, and he did not to me.
He didn't.
I think the backup safeties are an issue.
I think
backup safety is an issue,
because I mean every single one had issue. Thompson, Tariq Thompson, I don't even remember him.
No, he was just another guy out there.
Yeah,
at the end.
Jaquan Johnson, I thought was very just up and down. Like, he would do one good play.
I did not like his play.
I didn't overall. I didn't like it.
He looked slow to me. He looked out of shape. Even maybe a little.
I felt like they tried to run like a DB blitz with him a couple times, and he like just never got there. Or like was even pressuring. Yeah, he was just blocked. And like, he did have a couple good I think he had a couple good tackles in open field and a maybe a pass breakup by chance. But no, he only had 2 tackles. So there you go. But he also didn't really do anything where you could be like, let's say it came down to him. Well, not even that, but if it came down to him and Hamlin.
Oh, Hamlin's making the team.
As of right now, I'm going to keep Hamlin over him.
There's no doubt to me that Hamlin's making the team.
I just think, even though Hamlin had his mistakes, first of all, he's a
third round pick.
Yeah.
Or something, fourth round
pick. Hamlin was drafted in the 6th round. Oh, but he had 3 tackles. He had 3 tackles. 1 sack and a pass defense.
So he had 4 sackles.
He had 4 sackles and 1 PBU. So, I mean, that's obviously a better stat line than Johnson, who had 2. But also, Hamlin also showed that he might be like this athletic freak.
I think so too.
They might have found this like gem. here. Like
I think
there were a
I think
couple
it's very
times
possible that, I mean, we said he overcommitted.
he overcommitted, but
Those are things that you can fix.
the caveat to that, he was coming from the opposite side of the field.
Okay.
I felt there were at least once or twice on the, yes, he overcommitted, but there were also times where he would overcommit, but he was also coming from literally the opposite side of the field.
Mhm.
And like, that's an easy fix, because that just seems like he needs to figure out how to control his speed.
Yeah. I mean, that's just
And
your
that's not
defensive
hard.
backs and Leslie Frazier
Yeah.
fixing him. You know, I mean, like,
But
unlike
he
guys like,
got me really excited last night, because he was a guy going into the season when they drafted him where he made me excited.
Mhm.
And then watching him play last night, I was like, there were a couple times where I was like, whoa,
that was
like, that's not what we normally see a safety or
do.
a player in general do. Like,
yeah. And I felt that way. He looked a little small for a safety.
Yeah.
I thought.
yeah, I mean, he's
Um,
6'2", 200. So
Okay,
I think
he is a little small for a safety.
yeah,
But
I think
that's
he just
not
has to add
terrible.
on some weight. I think.
Maybe just 5 pounds in
Well,
muscle.
Micah's 197. So, but in Poyer's 191. So never mind.
But I think there's a difference between,
And they're both 6 foot. Huh.
yeah. So the Bills have a type.
They seem to have a type.
Yeah.
Yes. But I
Um,
think, and this might be a little out there. I think there is a chance for Hamlin, though. It's not going to happen soon. But
Okay, and I know exactly where you're going. Both Hyde and Poyer have 2 years left on their contract.
I think by that point, Hamlin could be a superstar.
A starter. He will easily replace.
He'll easily replace one of them. Yes, that's
We'll leave it there.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, and I think there's a chance, but I still think there's a chance for Hamlin to grow into like a really good safety, because like you look at the safeties we have around the league, and like you look at guys like Jamal Adams and like Derwin James and Tyrann Mathieu. He has a different body type than Mathieu and Adams, but
I was wondering where you were going with that, but
if you're thinking about top safeties in the league who like do everything, I think those are maybe Adams, but
Jordan Poyer kind of does everything.
Yeah, I mean Jordan Poyer. I was saying like not on our team, because I'm
Okay.
thinking like 2 years from now where Hamlin would be when their contracts are up, and I think there is
And
a
Hamlin would have 2
possibility.
years left on his contract.
And I think there is and he'll be in his 3rd year where everybody seems
That's what
to
I'm
take
saying.
off.
Right.
And I think there is a chance here that Hamlin will slide into that role and he'll become like a Derwin James. Like he's going to become this like athletic freak of a safety who just like somehow covers the entire field. Like, because I think there were a couple times last night.
Feeling like you're wrong.
There were a couple times last night where I felt like Hamlin was just all over the place.
Yeah.
Like he maybe didn't make the tackle, but he was there. He was
there.
maybe a step off, but he was there.
And it goes back to our Jamil Douglas conversation, right? When you see the cameras and the guy is there,
right,
that means they're doing something right.
They're doing
something very wrong.
Right. They're at bare minimum they are doing something versus not right. I guess.
Right. And so when your guys are trying, that's a good thing. Now Hannibal comes from the ACC.
Hamlin.
Well, there's Hannibal Hamlin. Okay.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
No.
It's a guy.
Okay.
So it's an actual person with an actual name. I would have to look it up, but I don't know if it's a character in something or whatever, but every single time I think of him, I'm like Hannibal Hamlin. But he looked good. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to.
Oh, Hannibal Hamlin is the former vice president of the United States.
See,
under.
He was a Democrat, Bangor, Maine.
Hold on. Wait. This says his political party is Democratic. But when you go to look on the side, that's also supposedly from Wikipedia. It says he's a Republican.
Well, maybe he was a Democratic Republican. What year? 1860 election. So he was Lincoln's.
Yeah.
No, he was Lincoln's first
Andrew
term.
Johnson. replaced. Oh no, he was replaced as vice. He was selected to run with Lincoln.
He ran with Lincoln for Lincoln's first term.
And then he was replaced by Andrew Johnson.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see.
So he could have been president if John Wilkes Booth acted earlier.
Political parties. He was a Democrat before 1856 and then changed to Republican. That's how he was able to run with Lincoln, because Lincoln was a Republican.
Right.
Gotcha.
That was also right
around
around
before 1856. So.
That was right around the time when the parties were changing.
Mm-hmm. Right, where the Democrats became
Republican, or where the Democrats became Democrats and the Republicans became Republicans. History lesson
in the middle of football. Anyway,
so I knew he was important to American history. At least it's a so that should be his nickname, by the way, because it's fantastic. Hannibal Hamlin.
We'll just start calling him that, and then maybe it'll catch.
Maybe it'll catch on because of all of our viewers.
Yeah. Well, Twitter too.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all my notes.
The only thing was special teams. First of all, I think we both agreed Bass was amazing, except for the end. But I think I rewound it.
He hit it. It did a little bit of this. I think he still hit it. It went through the middle of the uprights, and that's really all.
No, I meant the kickoff. I rewound it. Tasker was wrong. He missed.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
That was bad. He just missed.
I felt that way too.
He did it. I rewound it and watched his foot. He did not kick that right. Yeah. He did not intend to do that. It literally looked like his foot. It literally looked like his foot hit the ball and then went like this.
Well, maybe that's how you do it. I don't know.
Well, but I think what he does is he's the soccer style. So he hits it with the inside of his foot, because that's what he did on the first one. And that's what made it skip and then woo, do that. He did not do that with this. He hit this with the front of his toes. He hit this with his toes, but he hit it sideways. So his cleat slid on the ball, but he hit it, this was the impressive part. He hit the ball hard enough that it went forward. So when Tasker was talking about, well, you got to boot it, he did. He just missed.
Okay.
So even if you're missing and you're booting it, you're still not going to get the right kick.
Right.
Because the ball did not touch the ground and went directly to that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was and I don't know if you saw him after, but
he was so mad. He was so upset.
He was upset.
He was so upset that he did that. Yeah.
I remember,
he wasn't mad.
You could even read his lips, and he went to 4 different people.
He was I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
He said that the first coach, I think Farewell was the one who came out to greet him and was it's fine. And he's I am so sorry. I did not I am so sorry, man. Yeah. But he hit from 40 plus, 45 plus twice.
Yeah.
Was he over 50? That first one was long.
44.
Yeah.
The first one was 44. They tried him around 50 and he hit.
Yeah. I think he was at 48. I feel like he hit a 44, a 48, and a 46.
It doesn't matter. Tyler Bass is making the team. They don't even have a backup kicker.
Yeah.
On the roster. So
though the thing to talk about with Tyler Bass is after we knew he was good, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we knew he was he can hit from anywhere,
because he hit a 58-yarder last year.
There were a couple times. I think that very first kick, it felt like he could have hit that from 65.
Yeah.
And he was already at 48 yards.
Yeah.
I don't know if we knew that Bass was like that. We knew he was automatic.
I felt like we did.
Okay, maybe you did, and I wasn't hesitant.
Than you. It's okay.
I wasn't hesitant with him, obviously, because there's really nothing to be hesitant with him about.
No.
But I don't know if I knew in my head that if it came down to it,
you got that guy.
Yeah. There's zero.
Hesitation. No hesitation. You need a game-winning field goal. Bass is going out there.
Yeah. It's going to be nerve-wracking to watch him hit it. 9 times out of 10, I am putting money down that guy hits it.
Yeah.
I get it was in a dome, regardless,
Doesn't
it doesn't matter. Right. Like he was hitting. And then the other thing I want to bring up, I also want to point out Matt Hack. Hawk, 44.2 yards was his average.
He looked good.
over
There's a reason the Bills went and got him.
So,
We liked Gonzalez. Everyone liked Gonzalez, but the Bills went and got Hawk.
Bojorquez, you mean?
Gonzalez, Bojorquez.
Well, Gonzalez
close enough.
Yeah, I'll give it to you because Gonzalez was the other kicker for Detroit.
Detroit, yeah, and that's what I was working on. And he did not get to play.
No,
so I felt bad for him.
It was a Randy Bullock show.
It was, but
yeah, that's all I had for special teams.
Bojorquez
Bass is really good.
We liked Bojorquez, but Hawk looked great. He seems to have chemistry already with Ferguson and Bass.
Detroit averaged 1.8 yards per return.
Per punt return.
He
works.
He was hanging. He does what he's like Bojorquez, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He hangs it and gets it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he this is why they got him, because Bojorquez can't do this without having it go out of bounds. He's able to make it hang, so he has to catch it in bounds, but close enough to the out of bounds where it's like he just has to step out anyway.
Right.
Where it's like this is either going to hit right here and go out of bounds, and it's like, way down there.
Yeah.
Or I catch it, get a yard, and have to step out.
I thought it was interesting that they said that Ferguson, and Bass went to St. Francis and did all their. I don't know if you heard that or
I
not.
didn't catch that.
They said that they go to St. Francis to do their practice.
Well, there was a former UB punter when I was in high school who would go and use the Hamburg field.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on like the Browns practice squad at one point and like with Green Bay, but he was a punter and he would come and he's from Hamburg and he would come and use So but I think that's really cool too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, St. Francis though they have legit stuff.
Yeah.
So, our field is nice, but it's also St. Francis, and that's where kids come from. So,
yeah. So I think that's that.
I got nothing. I'm through.
You're through.
I got through everything I wanted to talk about. So,
well, do you want to talk about other stuff, or are we done?
It's up to you. We've been going for 91, so.
You want to stop at 92?
Whatever.
Okay.
How about this? Is there anything there that needs to be talked about now?
Needs to be talked about now.
Yes.
Tom Brady getting booed at Peyton Manning's induction ceremony.
I thought that was funny.
But I liked that he was like, what did I do?
Right. It's not like I have 11 rings or something.
So getting booed, yay or nay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Whatever. It honestly, that reminds me of like Goodell getting booed. It's like the same. You're gonna boo him because of who he is.
So it's probably Jets fans.
Yeah.
Jets fans booing him. We'll go with that. Olympics are over. Cool. Anything you want to say about that?
I was the one thing I was surprised of, I guess. I don't know why I was, but like that America won the medal count.
The gold count.
And the gold count, but they won the overall medal count too. But it was like by a significant amount.
They always do.
So I know I don't know. I felt like it was like it's been a lot closer in like the past couple Olympics.
Well,
but
they had to come through on the last day to win the golds.
Yeah.
But they did win the medals, the medal count, which I thought was cool. Did anything capture you about the Olympics, or did you just not watch?
I didn't really watch anything. There wasn't really anything. I don't know. I
don't know. We kind of got caught up in the gymnastics and the track and field, which is what you get caught up in the Olympics, right?
I feel like if like the times were different, maybe like that would have been like if it was not as late or whatever, or like weird.
Yeah, that was one of the things that screwed up our sleep, and then it screwed up our work.
Yeah,
kind of screwed with that. Bison's reopened last week.
Yeah,
gonna get to a game with your dad.
I'm sure we'll try.
Jack Eichel's still a Sabre?
Not for long.
We'll just check Chad Demonicus every day.
We'll just every single episode. That's how we'll end it. Is Jack Eichel still a Sabre? Yes or no?
My favorite Olympic sport. Can you guess?
Volleyball.
Indoor women's volleyball.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep. Suicide Squad. It's reported that the Warner Brothers was not happy with the initial financial.
Did it not open well?
It didn't. I thought it did too, but then I read that they weren't happy with the initial open, and that they're blaming Margot Robbie. And now they want her. Now they want her out as Harley Quinn.
Why? What did she do? What are they saying? She didn't do enough press or something?
No, they're blaming her whether she could carry a movie or not, kind of thing.
She didn't need. Okay.
Valid or not valid?
It's not valid.
It's not. I agree.
Valid.
The best
Idris
scenes,
Elba and Margot Robbie were the two best people, and then
the best scenes in Suicide Squad were all Margot Robbie's, and
except, well, I thought Idris Elba was awesome. So
he was very good. Yeah, there's something about him that bugs me, but that's just me. Spencer Dinwiddie. You want to end on this?
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
The $1 bonus for winning the NBA Finals. Yeah.
Yeah. So Spencer Dinwiddie put a $1 bonus in his contract if the Wizards win the NBA championship. Would you do something like that in your own contract?
Yes.
What would it be? What would it be?
It would probably be. It would be like the same thing, or I would be like, give me a certificate or something. Like I would be like a child. Be like, give me like the child certificate. That's like, you accomplished something. Good job. Like
you are somebody.
Right. You won your first championship. Here's
Sincerely,
a gold star.
All right.
This is from your best pal, the mascot.
Signed ball by Wizzy the Wiz.
Right.
Or whatever. So I think that's our show. We appreciate that Paul could join us. CJ could not join us today because of rain delays and his children's baseball games. I guess it rained.
It rained like all through. It was
we don't hear it. I don't hear it. I heard it and then I fell asleep and I didn't hear it anymore.
It was like
I heard it. We heard it start and then I think I was out. Because Leslie and I were talking about the rain and I went, it's supposed to start raining soon. And then she was like, well, put on an app. And we went back and forth. And I'm like, an app is just not the same as real rain. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, but it'll still sound like the rain and, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, it just doesn't feel the same. Like from when it's really raining outside. And then it literally started to rain outside. And I was like, oh, that's so nice.
So that initial
I was like,
yeah, so that initial like downpour, all night.
Okay.
Like all night.
Okay, cool. So our plants will grow more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's our show.
Yeah.
Episode 31. We appreciate everyone who's watching. We appreciate everyone involved. We miss Paul and CJ for the show, but next week it will be
Paul and CJ.
So they'll have plenty to talk about. Unless we want to do an all-4 show next weekend again after the Bills game.
Good.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, we will talk about that. It'll either be Paul and CJ or all 4 of us.
Or another round table.
We'll figure it out.
We'll let you know. So
follow us on Twitter. How about that? Gameday716 on Twitter. Go follow us, and you will tell
at Gameday716 at Todd Morse.
Morse Noah 716.
So there we go.
With that said, we appreciate you for listening. We appreciate you for making it all the way to the end. As always, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
And it looks like you're going to need to start wearing masks